Welcome back, everybody. This is Eric here with Iraq Veteran 8888. All right, today we've got a top 10 tip video, and this one is going to be for beginners in the reloading world. You're getting into making your own ammo, and there's probably a lot of questions. In fact, a ton of questions you're probably going to have. Where to start, what to do. I mean, there's a lot of information to know, and I thought it would be helpful, to share some of my experience with some of you. If you're getting into reloading, I mean, ammo costs have been crazy, so I know a lot of people are getting into it. It's a huge, thing that is growing leaps and bounds, and it's awesome to get into. But I wanted to share some of the information that I've learned over the years that maybe will help some of you, save you not only some time and effort, but maybe even some money as well, and a little bit of grief, and get you started on the right foot. So let's get into this. This is going to be a lot of fun. Before we get started, I would like to thank our friends at Sonoran Desert Institute for supporting our videos. SDI has got some awesome programs. They also have some reloading programs as well, but primarily in the world of firearms technology, gunsmithing, reloading, stuff on the business side. It is a distance learning program, an online school, if you will, but check them out. SDI, Sonoran Desert Institute. Tell them we sent you. They got some great financial incentives, wonderful instructors, great programs. If you want to go a little bit more full bore on the information, SDI is definitely a great resource for you. So check them out and tell them we sent you over there. All right, we're going to get into these tips, and let's get into it. All right, number one, buy a decent reloading press right out the gate. Okay. Probably now look, this is not a dig on Lee Precision, because I'm actually going to brag about Lee Precision here in a couple of these other tips. Lee Precision makes a solid press, and there are some companies that have come out over the last decade or so that are making some other entry-level stuff that's very affordable, and they're certainly not bad. And the Lee stuff is not a bad entry-level unit, but I have to say, I'd probably recommend getting RCBS Rock Chucker out the gate. It's going to cost you a little bit more money. The Rock Chucker is a single-stage press, so a real basic press, and a lot of people will get started out on a single stage. The reason I recommend starting out on a single-stage press is because it's going to teach you how to set up your dies properly, and it's also going to be a type of press that you're going to use for the rest of your reloading career. Even if you end up getting, a crazy, fully progressive press or a turret press, or, so a turret press has those heads that spin where you have the die plates, and then the progressive presses are ones that have much more automated features that allow you to load ammo more quickly. But even the most experienced hand loader is going to break their Rock Chucker out from time to time and load up a small batch of ammo to test. So it's a press that it's going to follow you for the rest of your reloading career. I still use my Rock Chucker for a ton of stuff, and the cool thing about the Rock Chucker is that it works with RCBS's plate system. So they have these plates that interface with a bunch of the different, foot profiles on all of their different presses. Everything from priming tools, their presses, swaging tools, you name it. All the different stuff. They've got these plates, and you can mount them to your bench and screw your press directly to this plate, and when you're not using it, you just back the screws out, pop the press off, hang it on the wall, whatever, when you're not using it. So that's convenient as well. But the thing I like about the Rock Chucker as well is it does have the die bushing that you can pull out and use the larger diameter dies as well. So it's a very versatile press. It's only going to cost you a little bit more than an entry-level press, and I strongly recommend getting a Rock Chucker right out the gate. You will not be disappointed. Okay, tip number two. Lee dies are awesome for the money. Okay, so I did kind of take a little bit of a crap on Lee Precision there in tip number one, but in tip number two, I'm absolutely going to hold Lee right back up. Lee does represent an excellent value in reloading dies, and they are very affordable, and they're generally available. They're always in stock. And most of your major retailers, because they are sort of an entry level, and honestly, I wouldn't even say entry level, like they're great dies. They're just not real expensive, okay? So it's a very affordable way to get into a set of reloading dies. And one thing I want to brag on about Lee Precision as well is they also have their collet neck sizing die, which is a fantastic die that works great. And Lee was one of the first people to design a collet neck sizer, and it's a very unique way to make a neck sizing die. So as you learn more about rifle reloading, you'll see that Lee makes some pretty interesting dies, okay? And if you ever get into casting, their bullet sizing dies are very affordable and very effective. So don't overlook Lee Precision if you're looking to get into a set of dies, right? All right, so let's get into tip number 3. Lee Precision also makes dies for odd and hard to find calibers for a very good price, okay? So let's say you pick up a random milsurp and, it might only be one gun that you need to load for. All right, for instance, the Steyr M95, right, was a 8x56 rimmed or whatever it is, or a 58 rimmed. I've got so many random rimmed 8mm like the LaBelle, I forget all of them. But here's the thing. Lee makes dies for all of these weird, obscure calibers. So say you pick up a French LaBelle, or you pick up a Steyr M95, or you pick up, an old Mauser or something, whatever it is, Lee probably makes a set of dies, and they're like 30 freaking bucks. So you can buy the rifle, buy a set of dies, and man, you're off to the races. You're ready to load ammo. So one thing about Lee, again, to brag on them, they do offer a lot of obscure stuff for a very fair price. All right, like the Martini Henry. You take that bushing out on your rock chucker, and bam, you can screw that large body Martini Henry die right into the top. 50 BMG, you can load it. It's pretty cool. I'm pretty sure that the rock chucker has the clearance to load 50 BMG. It may require the larger RCBS press to load the 50 BMG because of the case length and the seating, to get the projectile and everything. But all of your other larger diameter dies will work in the rock chucker if you just remove the bushing. So awesome stuff. And Lee Precision is awesome for allowing providing dies in some of the weirder calibers for some of us that, we don't want to spend $140 on a custom set of RCBS dies. Might not have that kind of money. So just something to keep in mind. Number 4, start out with common powders that you can buy in bulk. Okay, now I know if you pick up a reloading manual and start looking at powder options, you're thinking, wow, there's a lot of options here. But it's important to understand what the heavy hitters are in terms of commonality of powders, okay? And I'll just give you a basic list, right? For pistol, you can't go wrong with Unique. Unique is probably one of the most common pistol powders out there. You can load a ton of different pistol rounds with it. So Unique is something that every reloader needs in their arsenal. You can generally buy it in bulk in 8-pound kegs for a reasonable price, and it can... it's got a very good yield for its case capacity. So like a little 4-grain charge will get you a long way in a 9mm or something. So there's a lot of, you get good velocity for even a relatively low amount of powder. So you can load a lot of rounds out of a pound of Unique. The same can be said for tight group, long shot. But I think Unique and maybe Reloader number 5 is probably a much better option for pistol. But Unique, you can't go wrong. For shotguns, Red Dot, Promo. All right, look, Promo is an awesome shotgun powder. You can buy it so cheap. Red Dot is also very inexpensive. So I think that every reloader needs to have some Red Dot, some Promo, some Unique for their shotguns, their pistols. Now, we're not going to go into a lot of detail because we could get into magnums and things. I don't want this to be about that. This is for beginners, right? But find those common powders that seem to reoccur throughout the entire manual and do a bit of research and find those common powders and what they are, identify those powders, and try to focus on those first, because those are going to be your meat and potatoes. And then if you're going to chase a weird load, for instance, I use some of the Vitavori powders and stuff for some of my M39 loads for my Finnish Mosin, my M39, that use kind of some specific powders. You can chase those weirder recipes later, but start out with the common stuff and try to get more of that stuff in bulk so you have a good supply of it. Okay, number 5. When buying primers, try and get a matching lot and buy as many of that type as you can afford. Now, this goes without saying, but primers and powder are both, orchestrated into lot numbers. Okay, if you look at especially powder, it'll have a lot number and a date. You want to try to buy powder with the matching lot number and date as you can, and the same thing with primers. If you can order primers, if say you're going to buy 10 or 15,000 primers, try to make sure they were all made on the same production line at the same time. That's going to give you the best lot-to-lot consistency between all the ammo that you're going to make. Now, I know primers are expensive, especially right now, but buy as many as you can afford and make sure that the date and the lot and all of that matches on your powder and your primers as best you can within the financial means that you can. You will get some slight performance variations between lot numbers and dates. It's just a fact of manufacturing, right? One primer lot might be just a tiny, I'm talking a smidge hotter or cooler than another, and the same with the powder. One powder lot might be just a little bit more powerful or a little bit more, I'm talking a tiny amount less or more powerful, but it is a consideration. If you're trying to make the most consistent ammunition you can, why would you be reloading unless you want to make the most consistent ammo possible? Obviously, you want to make sure that you control the consistency of the lots of your powder and your primers. All right, so that's important. And I know, money-wise, that can be difficult, but try to check those lot numbers and make sure you keep getting as close to matching lots as you can. Number 6, be sure to store your primers and powder in a safe place where they won't absorb moisture. This is very important. You do not want moisture to compromise your reloading components. All right. I know you'll probably see if you go to like a gun shop where it'll have a lot of times they'll have a little label on the shelf that says, do not open boxes, do not handle projectiles, do not handle powder, primers. Yeah, that's because the oils from your hands can contaminate bullets. You can actually, that copper will oxidize and stain the projectile if you touch the components, right, with your bare hands. So, there are a lot of environmental factors in terms of storage that can dictate, how long your components are going to last. And to make matters a little bit worse, powder does readily absorb moisture, okay? It's just one of the natural tendencies of what powder does. So, the old saying, keep your powder dry, well, that's true, right? I recommend storing them in ammo cans with maybe a silica gel pack to help with moisture. Maybe if you've got a lot of reloading components, maybe you've got a small dehumidifier, okay? You could take like an old refrigerator, works great. Take an old fridge, run a dehumidifier line to it, and just keep your powder in an old fridge or something like that, and it will last as long as you keep it dry and free of any type of weird moisture or temperature swings. The powder will last just about forever. Powder lasts a long time as long as you store it properly. Now, obviously, as the powder gets a bit older, you might get a slight degradation of performance, but not much. There's, I know of many situations where guys have bought like old school surplus military rifle powder and it still works just fine. Think about your old milsurp ammo. Some of it still fires just fine, and you're talking ammo from the 40s. So it all comes down to how it's stored. Just like you would store your ammo carefully, so the same thing with your components. Make sure you're storing your components carefully, okay? Number 7, digital scales have gotten a lot better in the last 10 years. Now, there was a time, maybe in the last decade, I would have told you to avoid digital scales because some of the early ones were not very good and they weren't quite as consistent and they really weren't set up to measure properly in grains. But there's been a lot of technological advancements in powder scales in the digital format. You can totally trust them. Now, I would recommend having a balance beam scale laying around, just in case maybe you don't have access to batteries, or if you've got one of the types of digital powder scales like the RCBS one that actually dispenses the powder charge and weighs every single one, the Charge Master, which is the scale I use. Well, what if you don't have electricity? You still have to have a balance beam scale, and you'll have to hand weigh every single charge with a trickler, which can be done in a pinch and in a, let's just say a disaster environment where you don't have power to power a digital scale. So the nice thing is a balance beam scale can be had for very inexpensive, right? RCBS, Lee makes a pretty good one, but I would say spend a little bit more and get a Lyman or an RCBS balance beam scale, but don't be afraid to use a digital scale. Technology's here to make our life a little bit easier. If you've got the money and you want to buy a Charge Master, it's a fantastic scale. I love it. It works out great, and you get a weighed charge every single shot, very, very consistent, down to a tenth of a grain. Awesome. Highly recommended. So don't overlook digital scales. They've gotten a lot better over the last 10 years. Number 8. I recommend starting with your favorite pistol round and working your way up to rifle calibers. So some people may disagree with me on this. This is probably one area in here where I might get a little bit of pushback, but I would start out reloading pistol ammo before you get into rifles. And here's my reasoning. One reason is because rifle cartridges operate at a lot higher pressure than pistols. So if you make a mistake and you overcharge your gun, it can have disastrous effects. I mean, you don't want to blow up a fancy AR or something just getting started. And I'm talking like absolute beginner. You've never reloaded anything in your life. Start out with some 9mm or some 45 ACP. Now, not going to say that you can't double charge or overcharge a case and have a high pressure problem that could catastrophically kaboom the gun. That, of course, can happen with a handgun. But pistols do tend to be a little more forgiving, especially like a blowback or something, a blowback design. You shouldn't feed it a steady diet of high pressure rounds, but you might get away with it with a handgun more than a rifle. Obviously, you should be very, very, very careful in what you're dealing with and make sure you're following every recipe that's in a reloading manual to the T. Okay, but that's just one recommendation. I just start out with your favorite handgun caliber, just so you get everything down: priming, case preparation, case length, seating your bullet, doing your flare, your crimp, all that, your powder charge, getting it precise. I'd recommend starting out on pistol before you work your way up to rifle. That's just my recommendation. Do what you want, but that's the way I started, and knock on wood, I've never had a major issue out of a hand load. Okay? Number 9, Imperial sizing wax is a must-have product. When you do get into loading rifle cartridges or doing case forming or any type of intricate thing where you're making a decent stretch inside your reloading die, especially with a bottleneck case like a rifle, Imperial sizing wax is a must-have item. It's one of the few items in this list that I actually name specifically by name. It's excellent, and one large tin of it will last you like a whole year. All right, it takes very, very little. I mean, I'm talking a little bit. A little dab will do you. Get yourself some Imperial. You'll be happy you did. It will save you so much grief. Okay? Number 10, invest in a quality case tumbler. And so look, case tumblers are important because you want to make sure that your brass is clean before you put it in your reloading dies. Okay? You don't want to put dirty brass up inside your reloading dies. You get some weird wear. You can scratch the carbide on like a carbide set. It's just not good, right? You want your brass to be clean so it sizes nice and clean, and plus it makes your ammo look nice. You want to clean it. Now, one little caveat about case tumblers, and the reason that I want to mention them in this list for beginners is that case tumblers are also one of the main sources of lead exposure when you're hand loading. A lot of people think, well, I'm holding a lead projectile. I'm being exposed to lead. Well, that's true. You're holding lead, and you should, wash your hands and all that sort of stuff. We'll get into that in a second. But your tumbler is the worst culprit for lead exposure, because what's happening in that tumbler? That tumbler is tumbling the brass, which has lead residue all over it. And then that lead residue now gets into a powder form. And what do? You take the case tumbler, you empty it into your separator, and you got this cloud of crap that comes out of it. That is where you're breathing in and being exposed to the most lead, is with your tumbler. So use great care. I would wear like a little mask or something when you're emptying out your case tumbler, and invest in a good quality set of lead wipes. I recommend the Otis ones. Otis makes a great set of lead wipes that are just in like a dispenser, almost like those cleaning wipes, like a disinfectant wipe. You can pull them out, wipe your hands off, and that's making sure that you're not getting any lead in your bloodstream, which would be a very bad day. So always make sure you're checking on lead exposure, and make sure you have a great way to clean up on lead and everything. So I'm going to do one more wild card. So this is technically number 11, but one last thing I want to add as a tip for beginners. This is very important. Probably the most important thing that should have been near the top of the list, but I just want to mention this. As a wild card, invest in a quality reloading manual. This is very, very important. Now, again, I'm going to tip my hat to Lee Precision. Once again, the Lee Precision Modern Reloading Manual, whatever volume it's in now, I think it's in its 4th or 5th volume. It's been out a long time. Richard Lee, pick it up. It's a great reloading manual, and it's got a ton of useful information in it. Not just data, which data you need. Data is your recipes for what you're putting together. But it's got a ton of awesome information in it. And for a beginner, the Lee Precision Reloading Manual is a must. It is a wonderful manual. I still use it to this day, even though it's a pretty basic manual. But It's awesome, and it's like 20 bucks. It's one of the cheapest manuals out there, and it has all the information you need to get started. And here's another thing I would mention too on manuals. You can never have enough reloading manuals. I have an entire library of reloading manuals, old ones, new ones. Heck, when a new one comes out, I buy it. Don't be intimidated. There are a lot of different manuals from many different manufacturers, and some of them focus on very specific things, such as cast bullet reloading, or black powder shotgun shells, or shot shells, or slugs and buckshot versus birdshot. So don't get intimidated, but get yourself some literature, buy it in book form so you have a hard copy, and you've always got it at your disposal. So that's been my 10 tips for your beginning reloaders, and I hope you enjoyed today's video. And we are going to get back into making more reloading videos. I know we haven't done some in quite a while, but I've got a lot of cool tech to show you and a lot of useful information I want to put out, and I'm looking forward to getting back to making those videos, and I hope you'll join me for them. So thank you so much. Have yourself a great day. Go over to Ballistic Ink and pick yourself up an awesome new t-shirt. That's one way you can support the channel. I'll put a link in the description box below. You can check out some t-shirts, and if you want to support us, that's one way you can do so. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Many more videos on the way. We'll see you next time.